The average backyard plot is a gravesite for potential, filled with the corpses of plants that lived fast and died young, leaving you with empty soil and a tired spine by November. But imagine unlocking a secret level in your gardening game where the food chain bends differently, where the root system doesn't evaporate with the frost, and the plant becomes a permanent resident rather than a temporary tenant. We are talking about a living endowment. Crops that don't ask for a fresh start each spring. Crops that multiply silently beneath the dirt. Crops that transform a simple patch of earth into a compounding interest account of calories. These aren't the fragile hybrids you wrestle with each spring. These are botanical pillars. They strengthen the dirt they stand in. They spread via unseen networks, and they return with greater enthusiasm each passing year. And here is the quiet revolution that most soil turners completely overlook. The true value of these plants isn't measured in the first season's basket. It's measured in the 5th year, the 10th year, the 20th year. While the neighbour is hauling bags of topsoil and swiping a credit card for starter sets, you are simply walking outside with a pair of shears. You are harvesting from a well that refills itself. Welcome! In the next few minutes, you are going to meet 10 botanical allies that you install once and dine upon for a lifetime. These are not your standard salad bowl fillers. They are perennial anchors, self-cloning life forms, and geological survivors that reward stillness with relentless output. For each one, we will strip away the fluff and look at the mechanics. How does it cheat the calendar? How does it defend its territory? And how do you unlock its full potential with minimal friction? You will also receive one strategic insight per entry that safeguards the plant's vitality and extends your reign over the harvest. This is not about adding more labor to your weekends. This is the art of strategic neglect. It's about aligning your appetite with biology that wants to win. If you're ready to stop being a farmhand and start being a curator of a self-perpetuating pantry, then let us dig into the first species. Plant number 1 is the tropical vine tuber known as the sweet potato. Often relegated to holiday casseroles, the sweet potato is actually a perennial locomotive of nutrition. Unlike the white potato, which succumbs to blight and rot and demands a clean slate each year, the sweet potato can push new life from its slips in an endless loop. It adores the heat and will blanket your ground with a solar panel array of leaves so dense that weeds simply give up and go find shade elsewhere. The mechanics are simple. You start with a slip, it burrows, and it swells into those sunset orange reserves of energy. And we cannot ignore the payload. The flesh is saturated with beta-carotene and minerals. But here is the nuance most people miss. The foliage is not decoration. It is a secondary cash crop of greens. Those tender leaves are a culinary secret, packed with iron and a subtle nuttiness, offering a dual income stream from a single investment. You can graze on the leaves while the subterranean vault fills up below. To operate this system at peak efficiency, you need to think about the foot traffic underground. These roots want to breathe. Loose, sandy loam is their preferred bedroom. They crave the sun's direct gaze, but will tolerate your occasional forgetfulness with the hose. Surround them with other heavy feeders, and they will adjust. The real genius move lies in the year-to-year transition. As the days grow short, you pull the treasure from the ground, but you must have the foresight to act as a banker. You keep a few prime specimens, not the runts, but the thick, unblemished titans. You store them in a cool, dark limbo. Come spring, those sleeping giants will erupt with a forest of slips, ready to colonize the soil anew. This closes the loop. You never purchase a starter again. You are now running a closed-loop sweet potato operation. The bonus insight is this exact loop management. Curate your own seed stock from the heaviest yielders, and you will breed a lineage of sweet potatoes specifically adapted to your own backyard microclimate. Plant number 2 is the aristocrat of the spring garden, asparagus. This is not a vegetable. This is a land lease agreement with nature that lasts a quarter of a century. You bury a strange octopus-like crown beneath a foot of amended earth, and for the first 2 years, you practice the spiritual discipline of patience. You do not cut. You watch those spears turn into a feathery, tall green hedge that sways in the breeze. And then In year 3, the dam breaks. The soil warms just a few degrees, and these thick, purple-tipped shoots start punching through the mulch like periscopes. For 6 to 8 weeks, you are in a race to snap them before they get woody. The nutritional density here is staggering. It is a diuretic, a vitamin K bomb, and a prebiotic fiber source that tunes the gut. And what happens after you stop picking? The fern phase is not an afterthought. It is a solar factory rebuilding the underground war chest for next year's explosion. That feathery canopy is also a physical shield. It shades out the crabgrass and keeps the soil profile cool and moist. To get asparagus to outlive your mortgage, you must treat the bed like a sacred burial ground. No heavy boots, no rototiller violations. Deep, rich compost trenches are the offering. Once the crowns lock into the subsoil moisture, you become largely irrelevant. But even an ancient bed can slow down after a decade and a half. The plants get crowded. They start whispering to each other about real estate prices. This is where you step in with a sharp spade. You perform a rhizome division. You unearth the tangled mass, break it apart, and transplant the youngsters to a new wing of the estate. It resets the vigor clock. The bonus insight here is to treat the bed as a modular system. Divide and conquer every 10 to 12 years, and you will hand this asparagus patch down to your grandchildren. Plant number 3 is the giant tart stem of the north, rhubarb. Rhubarb is the living embodiment of the phrase, tough love. The leaves are loaded with oxalic acid and will make you sick. The stalks are pure, mouth-puckering pleasure. It is a plant of dramatic contrasts. Once you tuck that crown into the corner of the garden, it will likely outlast the fence you built around it. 20 years is the floor, not the ceiling. It requires almost zero conversation. It just gets bigger. The root system becomes this massive, fleshy anchor that drills down and hoards nutrients. It holds the soil together during the spring thaw and pushes up those gigantic, umbrella-like leaves as if to say, I was here before you and I will be here after. What fascinates me about rhubarb is its metabolic demand. It is a hungry beast. You cannot starve this plant and expect the baseball bat-sized stalks. You must feed the beast in the early spring. A generous top dressing of aged manure or compost, right as the snow melts, will translate directly into stem girth. And while the leaves are toxic to humans, they are pure gold for the compost pile. They break down into a dark, rich humus that can feed other parts of your property. The cultivation is dead simple. Sunlight plus heavy feeding equals long, ruby red stems. But after a solid run of 7 or 8 years, you will notice the center of the clump becoming congested and stingy. The stalks get thinner, more fibrous. The plant is screaming for a divorce and new space. You oblige it by plunging the spade right through the heart of the crown. You separate it into large chunks, each with a healthy eye and a chunk of that starchy root. This is not just maintenance. This is multiplication. 1 becomes 3, then 5. The bonus insight is to never harvest more than half the stalks in a given season. Leave the solar panels in place to recharge the battery. Greed kills rhubarb. Restraint builds dynasties. Plant number 4 is the stinking rose garlic. Most people think of garlic as an annual, a fleeting affair of planting in October and pulling in July. But garlic has a memory. If you are wise, you can turn it into a permanent resident of the soil matrix. Hardneck varieties in particular want to be immortal. They send up those curly serpentine scapes in the spring. Cut them off. Eat them. They are delicious. But the secret to perpetual garlic is in the bulb selection. You are looking at a genetic time capsule. By saving the biggest, most flawless bulbs from your harvest and slipping them back into the ground come fall, you are not just planting food. You are practicing artificial selection. You are building a strain of garlic that is perfectly synced with your specific length of winter and your specific soil biome. Over a 3-year cycle, this garlic becomes uniquely yours. It becomes more resilient to local pathogens, more tolerant of your rainfall patterns, and larger in clove size. The mechanics of this are beautiful. Garlic is a chemical weapon. It exudes sulfur compounds that fumigate the soil against nematodes and fungal spores, It acts as a bodyguard for your fruit trees or tomato rows. The underground growth is a silent cleanup crew. To maximize this, you must understand the vernalization requirement. It needs that shock of cold to trigger the division into cloves. Plant it deep enough that the frost won't heave it out of the ground, but not so deep it rots in a wet winter trench. A blanket of straw is the insurance policy. The bonus insight is to never plant the small cloves. Eat those. Plant the monsters. The plant's vigor is directly tied to the stored energy in the clove you put in the hole. Big clove in, big bulb out. It is the simplest math in the garden. Before we turn the page to the more obscure and dangerously productive crops, let me ask you a pointed question. Have you ever accidentally left a potato in the ground and found a small forest the next year? That is the universe giving you a hint about the nature of perennials. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had a volunteer plant surprise you. It is proof that the plants want to live forever if we just stop interrupting them. Also, if this shift in perspective is making the gears turn in your head, smash that like button. It signals to the algorithm that we should stop promoting disposable agriculture and start teaching multi-generational food strategies. And here is a quiet warning. The next batch of crops on this list are so aggressively prolific that you need to plan for containment before you plant. They are not just plants, they are expansionist empires. Stick around, because this is where the idea of a low-effort garden flips into a high-abundance, zero-input reality. Plant number 5 is the American native tuber, the Jerusalem artichoke, also called the sunchoke. I want you to picture a plant that looks like a wild sunflower, stands 10 feet tall, and requires exactly zero help from you after the first year. Below the soil line, it is crafting knobby, water chestnut-like tubers that are loaded with a fiber called inulin. This is a prebiotic that feeds the beneficial bacteria in your lower intestine. It is a digestive tonic, but be warned. It is also the source of the infamous fartichoke nickname. Your gut biome will adjust. Your garden, however, will never be the same. Sunchokes are the definition of a plant once, harvest forever crop because you cannot stop them. Even if you try to dig every single tuber, you will miss one. And that one, smaller than a thumbnail, will send up a stalk next year like a middle finger to your efforts. This is their superpower and their cautionary tale. They are a biological battery. They store energy in the form of inulin instead of starch, which means they are crisp and water chestnut-like when raw and soft and sweet when roasted. They thrive on neglect. Poor soil? They fix it. Drought? They barely wilt. They provide a massive windbreak and a visual screen for the back of your property. But you must establish a perimeter. A buried barrier or a dedicated raised bed without cracks is essential unless you want a monoculture of sunflowers. The cultivation is laughably easy. Shove a tuber in the dirt, cover it, and walk away. In autumn, when the stalks die back, that is your signal. The plant has transferred all its sugars down to the roots. You dig, and then you intentionally leave a few in the ground. That is the critical step. That is the deposit on next year's yield. The bonus insight is to harvest them after a hard frost. The cold converts some of the inulin to simpler sugars, vastly improving the flavor and reducing the digestive turbulence. Plant number 6 is the gnarled golden hand of the tropics, ginger. Ginger is a testament to the fact that you don't need a farm to have a continuous supply. You just need a windowsill or a shady corner of the yard. It is a rhizome. It creeps horizontally, just under the duff layer, sending up reed-like shoots that exhale a spicy, calming aroma. It is a plant of the forest understory. It does not want the harsh, midday laser beam of sun. It wants dappled light, high humidity, and the slow decay of leaf litter. When you plant a piece of organic ginger from the market, one with little nubby eyes like a potato, you are essentially hitting the copy-paste button. The original piece will swell and branch, creating a tangled mat of fresh, juicy roots. And the beauty of ginger is the cut-and-come-again method. You don't need to unearth the whole colony. You can scratch away the soil at the edge of the pot or bed, snap off a finger of the rhizome, and cover it back up. The plant barely notices. It just redirects growth to a new direction. It is a perpetual underground conveyor belt. The nutritional profile is well documented for quelling nausea and inflammation, but the homegrown version is a revelation. The skin is thin, the flesh is juicy and fibrous, and the heat has a floral, citrusy note that dried powdered spice lacks entirely. To keep this cycle going forever, you must protect it from the cold. Ginger despises temperatures below 50 degrees. If you are in a temperate zone, the container method is non-negotiable. You wheel it into the garage or a bright room when the leaves start to yellow. You let it go dormant, and then you wake it up with warmth and moisture come spring. The bonus insight is to save the largest, plumpest hand from your harvest as the mother seed for the next season. The bigger the starter, the faster the next crop. Plant number 7 is the pungent root with a punch, horseradish. Horseradish is the plant you plant when you are tired of being nice. It is the botanical equivalent of clearing your sinuses with a firecracker. It is also, and this is crucial, a perennial that views concrete as a mere suggestion. This plant wants to own land. The taproot can descend deep into the subsoil, mining minerals that have been untouched for millennia and bringing them to the surface. It is a dynamic accumulator, and the leaves are a broad, dock-like green that shades out anything foolish enough to compete. The primary culinary use is the root grated fresh with vinegar to trap the volatile heat. But the garden function is equally important. Horseradish is a sacrificial trap crop for certain beetles, and its root exudates can suppress fungal issues in the soil. It is a bodyguard for your fruit trees. However, the unbridled enthusiasm of horseradish is its only drawback. If you let it seed, or if you till it under, you will have a horseradish farm whether you want one or not. The solution is to treat it like a prison inmate with a life sentence. You confine it to a specific cell. A deep, bottomless bucket sunk into the ground is ideal. You plant a single root cutting, just a piece of the side root, not the main taproot, and you let it go. It will fill that container in 2 seasons. When you want to harvest, you pop the whole container out of the ground, break off what you need, and slide it back. It's like a root vegetable vending machine. The bonus insight is to harvest only the side roots, leaving the main central column intact. That core is the heart of the beast. Leave it alone, and it will produce side shoots for a decade. Disturb it, and you might as well be planting a new one. Plant number 8 is the mulberry tree. If you have a sunny spot and you are not growing a mulberry, you are, and I say this with respect, working too hard for your vitamins. This tree is a monument to abundance. The fruit resembles a stretched blackberry and tastes like jam right off the branch. The tree itself is fast-growing, drought-tolerant once established, and provides a dappled shade that cools the yard. But the real magic of the mulberry is the harvest window. Unlike cherries, which are gone in a week, mulberries ripen in a staggered wave. You walk under the tree every day for a month and you grab a handful. It is grazing, not harvesting. And if you are too slow, the birds will happily take your share. The solution is simple. You plant more than you need. The tree is so prolific that there is enough for you, the catbird, and the fermentation in the grass. The wood is valuable for tool handles, and the leaves, interestingly, are the preferred food of silkworms. It is a multi-use system. From a nutritional standpoint, these berries are packed with resveratrol, the same compound found in red wine and associated with heart health. They stain your hands purple and your teeth a terrifying shade of blue. These are signs of high anthocyanin content. To ensure this tree keeps pumping out fruit for the next 50 years, you need to guide its structure early. A few corrective pruning cuts when it's young will prevent it from becoming a tangled mess of weeping branches that snap under the weight of the fruit. You are training it to be strong. The bonus insight is to plant the tree on the south side of a chicken run. The chickens will clean up any fallen fruit and any insect pests that drop. It turns a messy cleanup into a protein conversion cycle. Plant number 9 is tree collards, the perennial kale of the West Coast. This plant is a genetic anomaly. It is a brassica related to cabbage and broccoli, but it has forgotten how to die. It forms a thick, sturdy stalk that can reach 8 feet tall, and from this stalk emerge huge purplish-green leaves that are sweeter and more tender than any annual kale you have ever chewed. It is the plant that laughs at the winter. A hard frost does not kill it. It sweetens the leaves. This plant is a living pantry. You can walk outside in February when the garden is a frozen wasteland and strip a dozen leaves for a warm soup. It thrives in coastal climates, but can be successfully grown inland with a little shade from the afternoon inferno. The secret to tree collard longevity is the harvest technique. You must never take the terminal bud. You always harvest from the bottom up. You are taking the older, mature leaves, which prompts the stalk to continue stretching upward and pushing out new growth from the top. This is how it becomes a tree. It is a vertical accumulator of energy. The stems become gnarled and woody over time. If you want to keep the plant in the same footprint for 20 years, you do not let it get leggy and fall over. You aggressively prune the top. This sounds counterintuitive, but cutting the main stalk back forces the plant to branch out and create a multi-headed fountain of leaves. It rejuvenates the lower section. And those cuttings you just took? You stick them in a jar of water. They root in 3 days. It is the easiest plant in the world to clone. The bonus insight is to propagate these cuttings every autumn and give them away, or plant a new hedge. Because while one plant can live decades, a backup copy in a new location is cheap insurance against a random gopher. Plant number 10 is the blueberry bush. This is the final entry because it requires the most specific understanding of soil chemistry. Blueberries are not just plants, they are acidic pH monitors. If you stick a blueberry bush in neutral, clay soil, it will sit there and sulk until it dies of iron deficiency. But if you give it what it wants, a peat moss-rich acidic bed with a pH between 4.5 and 5.5, it will repay you with decades of explosive fruit set. The bush itself is a thing of beauty. It has brilliant fall color, bright red or yellow leaves, and a zigzag branching structure that looks sculptural in the snow. And the fruit is the gold standard of antioxidant therapy. They freeze perfectly right off the branch and into a zipper bag, preserving that summer freshness for the depths of winter. The key to a 20-year-old blueberry bush that is still producing gallons of fruit is the annual pruning ritual. You must remove the old, grey, twiggy wood. Blueberries fruit best on younger, thicker canes that are about the thickness of a pencil. By removing the oldest branches, you force the plant to send up vigorous new shoots from the crown. It is a fountain of youth. You are literally cutting away old age. The bonus insight is to plant at least 2 different varieties, not just for pollination, but for timing. An early season berry paired with a late season berry stretches your harvest window from a few weeks into a multi-month berry festival. You are not just planting a crop, you are building a calendar. What you have just witnessed is a blueprint for a different kind of existence with the land. It is a quiet, persistent, and deeply rewarding relationship. It is the opposite of the frantic, diesel-fueled till and toil model. These 10 plants are not just food, they are infrastructure. They are a hedge against the chaos of supply chains and rising costs. The beauty of this system is the scaling factor. You do not need to rip out your entire yard tomorrow. You just need to plant one. Maybe it's the asparagus crown in a forgotten corner. Maybe it's the garlic tucked into the flower bed. That one act is a deposit in a long-term trust fund that compounds in flavour, nutrition, and security. A garden based on these principles does not just sustain you, it outlasts you. It becomes a legacy. It is a place where the soil gets better, the roots get deeper, and the work gets lighter with every trip around the sun. The most powerful thing you can do is simply begin. Choose one species, dig one hole, and set in motion a cycle that will feed you for the rest of your life. That is the quiet, ironclad promise of the perennial world. If you're ready to stop chasing the harvest and start living within it, you know what to do. Put a thumbs up on this video, help others find their way to a more permanent food supply, and make sure you are subscribed to my channel so you don't miss the next deep dive into smarter, lazier, more abundant growing. Nature has a long memory. Plant once, and she will remember you forever.